people like to see things that they look at and they're like, oh, I could make that.
Yep.
It speaks
Absolutely.
to people. So it's not even a bad thing if you just have to shoot on your phone. Like, it's actually maybe better for you.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of EventSpeak with me, Big John, CEO Beyond Experiential. Today's guest is my dear friend who, for those of you interested in doing what we're doing here today, be it a podcast, video stream, whatever it might be, she's the person you want to get advice from. And fortunately for you, that's pretty much what she does. She is a digital content producer. She's got a long history in the event business, and now she's in front of the camera and behind it. And I'm just delighted to have her on the show. Please welcome Marielou Mandl. Marielou, how you doing?
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me today. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, most important question is, how are you? How are things been going? Obviously now quite a bit of time has passed with the craziness of COVID life in America. It's the easiest question, I suppose, but maybe the most difficult to answer is, how have you been handling that, Marielou, and how has that affected you personally and professionally?
Well, I would say if you would ask me this before, and you and I have talked multiple times throughout the pandemic, and it has changed. It's up and down. I take things day by day. But I would say now that we're in it, it's the norm now. I've gotten into a routine that works for me. I take things very moment by moment, but I also think that there's been a lot of time to kind of reflect on what it is I want to do in life, because we don't have the luxury of being distracted by the hamster wheel of work.
No, it's, I find myself saying that a lot to people. They'll say like, how are you? I'm like, oh, adapting to the new normal. And I really do think that's pretty definitive to this time right now. I feel like we're just now starting to get some little bleak specks of hope as to, I'm starting to hear the rumblings of events getting put together here and there. And, I would think, though, for a digital content producer, this would be an ideal time, because everybody these days has got a podcast. Everybody's trying to figure out how they can do, what we're doing here. So let's talk a little bit about that and kind of the transition maybe. I know that, we met some years back. We were working together on events here in Los Angeles. I know you've done a lot in the event world, and now you're a digital content producer. Can you walk me through a little bit of that journey of how that happened?
Yes, I loved working in the event world. I thought it was really great. But being at events, I always saw this opportunity that brands had to connect with more people. Like, it's not just the people who are at the activation. There's an opportunity to put this out on the internet in some kind of way, have an aspect of it to make it digital so it is accessible to everyone. Because what's something that works out a lot with like these pop-up events is the FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. So there's a marketing opportunity by translating your live events into digital. So I had been thinking that for years. So many different companies that I worked with, I would bring something up like that where I'm like, okay, we need to make sure we have a hashtag. We need to have somebody taking pictures and doing videos and make sure that people know this is happening. So even if they can't make it, they want to make it. So now they want to know more. And in that kind of mindset, because I'm a tech nerd and I just love cameras and I love creating content, and I'm really passionate about just people using technology for creativity. So in the event world, right, if you're on the production side, there is an aspect of creativity. So it was just for me thinking, how can we get bigger and badder with this? But the whole reason I got even into learning how to take a picture, because I was always into the fact that we should be making content, but then I had to eventually teach myself how to make the content, because I was working events all the time. I dislocated my knee and I couldn't
Ouch.
work the events the way that I could normally work the events. So fortunately, I had a really good relationship with the company I was working with, and they're like, well, you can come and work the orientation table. I'm like, the orientation table, like, you know, that's for new people, like people who like don't do stuff at the event. But I was like, but I have this camera. If it's okay with you, I will slowly hobble around and I will take event photos that you guys can use for the recap. You can send it to the client. You can put it on social. I don't care. But like, you know, because I knew it was an all-day event and I could make it around the activation enough with my slow movement. And then it started from there. And they were like, wow, you like know how to do this. And I was like, okay, I see what it is that brands spend money on. So because I'm on the production side, and like, you know, we can open up a truck, we get all of the elements of an event, and you can tell right away, like this was important to the brand, this was important to the brand, and so was this. So you make sure you take pictures of that. And I also have the kind of eye that's like, I need to make sure there's no water bottles in the picture, and I need to make sure there's not conflicting brands on people's shirts. Like those are the kind of details that I notice. And I know that in my capture, when I would capture digital content for events, that's something that stood out to the agencies that I was working with. So that's how I ended up producing the content beyond just being part of a team, but actually taking photo and video myself. And then I just liked it. So,
you know, that's a really great point. I don't think people realize the finite details that go into experiential marketing and brand marketing, what you just said, as far as just knowing that, for example, you know, where you have conflicting brands that might be just placed, maybe it's a water bottle that's, you know, Dasani that's owned by Coca-Cola, but it's taking place at an event that's got, you know, a Pepsi-Cola interest, and therefore you can't have the bottle out there. You know, that's where I would think someone with your background in events, it would be really key for you now being a content producer, because those are the kind of things you're aware of. You're looking for that. And if you don't have that kind of experience and that kind of know-how, people may not know to look for it. It's funny, anytime, you know, when you bring in new people, into you know, brand ambassadors, folks like that, and you'd be training them. And something I remember one particular time, I think it was actually on that Starbucks thing that you worked for us back in the day, and we had someone brand new come in, and it was just as simple as putting some sweetener packets into a little dish thing on each table where there was going to be coffee. And you know, I had to stop them and be like, no, you see how they're all different, facing different ways. You got to face them so that the brand faces here like this, like that. It's these little things you don't think about. So I think that you've definitely got the advantage with that kind of know-how. And now here you are where the live event arena has been, let's say, paused. It's taken out of the equation. And now it's strictly digital. And we're seeing a lot of digital events, you know, everything in brand marketing from, you have these virtual events happening. You have virtual concerts happening. How do you feel that is going to change the rhythm of events when we do get on the other side of this pandemic? And how do you see that sort of handshaking with events when we're going to be able to act with people and be out there with actual consumers again?
Well, because even when we do come back, we're not going to be able to activate to the level that we could before. Like, it's going to be years before we see a big festival again. It's going to be years before we can have a crowd of people in front of a stage. So being able to translate into digital as well, even once we can have people at live events, is going to be even more important. And I even, you know, I work in front of the camera as well. So that had become a hybrid thing that I could do for events. So like one of my favorite projects is World Championships of Performing Arts. So I've worked with them for years. They're like once a year competition, and it's talent from all over the world. So this would happen in person every year for years. And I had participated with them in a few different ways, but they brought me on last year to basically produce like a vlog of each day and get footage of everybody interacting and participating in the competition, and also serving as the face for the internet. So like I produced a show for 10 days straight of this event, which then got in front of the faces of all the people at home who couldn't be there, because not everyone can make it to an event. So people are following along with the event. And I think that is going to be what new events are going to have to do. Like, you're going to have to create some digital version of your event to share with people at home, because even if they didn't get to go, but they saw a sizzle reel of it or they saw a live stream of it, they're going to get their eyes on the brand, because that's what we want. All of this is to get more eyes on the brand that is being marketed. And there's so many ways that you can do that. You can do it through social media, right? Instagram stories, Instagram live streams like that. If you're doing a convention, when there's discussions, it should always be streamed or at least recorded and played back, so people who can't attend or are too scared to attend, because that's something that's going to happen too, is people are going to be scared to come to an event in person. But that doesn't mean they're not a consumer that would be interested in your product, your brand, your service.
So it's figuring out really how to reach them. And I think, as we're talking about it, I could see that being an advantage to reaching, the younger folks, the millennial generation, and even the generation coming in after them, that are so inundated to digital. We had some friends of ours at a company called Gamer Jibe on the show recently for an upcoming episode. It's really pretty incredible what they do. But it's essentially, was founded by a person that was a game developer. So, you have an avatar. It's very fluid. It's like you're inside a video game, except it's completely set up to where, you're at this virtual event. And I don't want to give away the episode, because we actually do a demo and go through the whole thing. But it's interesting because they just happened to launch going into this year without any clue. Obviously, we're about to fall into a pandemic. I would think for young folks that are gamers, like, they're going to be drawn to that. They're going to be drawn to that even when you do have the option to go to the convention center, when you do have the option to go to the events. And you're absolutely right. I believe that it's going to take a long time for not only just on the sense of logistics and for people to be willing to underwrite this from an insurance standpoint and have festivals and have outdoor events again. It's going to take time for a lot of people to be comfortable enough to go out and really interact with it. Now, as we know too well by paying attention to social media and the news, a lot of people won't care and they'll be waiting in line to go out there by the thousands. But there's going to be just as many that are going to be like, oh, I don't know. Well, actually, they've got this option where I could just go online and I could do this digital thing. And then you still kind of get the experience. And there's, of course, a silver lining there. You don't have to leave the house and there's no traffic. And if the event's in London, it doesn't matter because you're in cyberspace. You know what I mean? I feel like the challenge, though, is going to be really doing something that is going to grab people's attention, to make an impression, to give them that same takeaway that experiential marketing or experience-based marketing gives you. Because if what's the old saying, if you show me, I might remember. If you tell me, I'll forget. But if you involve me, then I'll never forget it. So like, you've got to involve them and you've got to leave that impression. And I would think for yourself as a digital content producer, that's probably the constant challenge, is like, how do you do something that's unique and organic, that's still going to get especially if it's a brand that happens to be something that is, a brand that's based in activity, a brand that's based in like a lifestyle.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing if it's a computer game or a computer system or, whatever the case is. But, even looking at it from the perspective of like, your major soft drink companies and some of the biggest experiential advertisers out there, like, you could show a new flavor of Mountain Dew all day long, but if you don't taste it, how do you really know what this new flavor of Mountain Dew tastes like? You know what I mean?
Right. And then that's something that I miss about experiential, right? It's because you could be just walking in the mall and then there's like this thing and you're like, I didn't know that existed. And then you walk through it and you get this experience, you get to try it and you get to be involved more than just looking at a poster, right? Because that's like a lot of the times when you see digital advertisement, it's just like a video, it's just a commercial. So you're like, okay, I don't know what that means, but sure, I saw it. But something that I recommend to a lot of the the clients that I've worked with, when they work with me just one-on-one to promote their things, their products or their brand, is a connection with the audience, which is where having a host or someone who can talk to the camera naturally is going to serve you well. Now, that doesn't work for every brand, because not every brand talks to the audience the way that some can. But that's where, like, using influencers and things like that, because now that's somebody they have a connection with, and they feel like they're trying it because their friend tried it. And they feel like, oh, I got a recommendation from my friend, which is just an influencer that they're a fan of, said, I like this version of Mountain Dew, so then maybe I'm going to go to the store and buy it. And then to talk to the audience directly, and not in a way that's a, hey, customer, it's Jared sitting at home. I think you would like this. And finding
Absolutely.
a way to talk to them one-on-one and giving them experiences that way. So there's going to be a lot of out of the box thinking, and I'm excited to see what comes out of a year of this in the digital realm as it serves experiential marketing, because I know that there's going to be some creativity that comes out of it. Absolutely.
Things that you can't even probably fathom right now, because that's part of what I love about experiential is you get these really great creative minds sometimes that put together these truly unique experiences, or you're like, wow, like I never would have thought of that in 1,000 years. Comic-Con has always been one of my favorite things every year. Was part of that for almost 4 years with some friends over at Adult Swim, and just got to see all these cutting edge, experiential build outs that, now we're going to see those same kind of creatives turn it to see, like, well, how do we take this digital experience and do something like you were just talking about? I feel like there's subliminal advertising there. There's subliminal marketing where, if it's a new flavor of Mountain Dew, as we're talking about, maybe that's just coupled supporting, the latest Billie Eilish concert that's streaming online. And, and there's some sort of a VIP digital meet and greet with a select group of people that's sponsored by Mountain Dew Code Red or whatever it is, just simply by someone that loves Billie Eilish, or insert the artist here, and has that experience because of Mountain Dew. You're going to remember that when you're at the grocery store, one of the few things we could still go and do, and decide you're going to try a new soft drink. I think that's definitely something we're going to see more of. Now, let's talk about before we wrap up, I want to talk about create, release, and repeat. Did I get that right?
Repeat.
Now, this is your Facebook group that's open to folks that are interested in trying to set up a podcast or get in front or behind the camera. Tell us a little bit about that.
That is my mantra, is create, release, repeat. So I talk about that a lot on my social media. And eventually I created this Facebook group because I would have friends who are creatives and want to create content. And the group is not just for people who are like strictly like making YouTube or Instagram, things like that. It's just for any kind of creative that wants to feel supported by a community of other creators, because we all run into the same problems, right? What comes up all the time is like, how do I organize myself to do this? How do I stay motivated to do this? How do I make time? I have kids, I have a job, I have this, I have that, like those kind of struggles, in addition to the tech things if you're creating digital content, because I get those questions a lot of like, how do I hear my audio in my headphones? Or, how do we record Zoom this way? Or, different things like that. Like, and I would get asked these questions all the time, and I love to answer them because I love to help people like get past the hurdle that is holding them back from the next thing, because it shouldn't be the technology. It should, I just want to like clear the path for people to do the thing they want to do and like express their creativity. So I created this group as a place. It's in its very beginnings. It's a baby group at this point, but the people in it are wonderful. And it's just a place for support. So every Monday I'll post like I've been calling it the struggle bus, right? Because we all have the struggle bus moments.
I see it.
And
I'm like, I'm on the struggle bus.
Yes, right? It's like all aboard, come on.
Yeah.
Because what I find is so useful is like, so I'll post it there and we'll post wins as well, because those are important. But to hear that everyone is like, oh man, yeah, I couldn't get myself out of bed to do it today, or I couldn't get my camera to work, or I couldn't, just to know like, oh, everyone has these problems. It is not the universe against me. This is just part of the struggle. So we get on the struggle bus and then we talk about it a little bit and everybody's like, oh yeah, me too. Or like, oh, that happened to me the week before. Here's kind of what I did. Is helpful. And I think it's just good for a community, a creative community, to understand you're not alone, because that's all of us just don't want to feel alone. And we're not, especially in this digital world and like our stay-at-home world. It's easy to feel isolated. So I wanted to kind of create a place like that, because this is the kind of discussions I would have with friends over coffee, you know, or we would go out to dinner and like talk about like, oh my gosh, I've been working on this thing and it's been giving me so many problems, but we don't quite have that anymore. So I created the group for that. And then that's an offshoot of Create, Release, Repeat Live. So that's the live stream that I'm starting to do weekly, where we discuss those kind of topics. So whatever's come up in the group, we talk about those things, take questions and comments from viewers who are watching live, and just encourage people to go out and create, because that's all I want to do. I want to encourage and empower people to create. And then that also leads to the tutorials. So I have a lot of just like technical tutorials. If you go to my website and my YouTube and on Instagram, I do just, you know, how can you change the highlights on your Instagram story? Or how do you post on IGTV? Just basic things like that are the like, oh, I wish I could post on Instagram, but I don't know how. And I'm like, it's actually pretty easy. Let me just walk you through it. Like, yeah. And I'm just like that friend that's like, I'll show you. Hold on. It's just, no, see, easy. Here you go. And that's what I'm so passionate about, because whenever I get a comment from someone, whether I know them or not, and they're like, that is what I needed to know. Now I can move on to the next bit of the struggle bus, because there's always going to be more.
No, well said. And, you know, I for those of you out there, Mariellou's been really great and really supportive of what we're doing here at EventSpeak. And I've gone to you with a bunch of different things like, Marielou can't figure out how to put the flex capacitor on the VHS or like whatever it is. Cause you know,
there's not always an answer.
It's not.
Like, I don't know, that doesn't work. So we have to find some other thing. And even for me, like I've got, you know, so much gear to play with, but sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to shoot on my phone. I need to remove all the barriers.
Yeah, right.
And finish and do it.
I forget it was when the X Awards were happening a couple weeks back. And all we wanted to do was just shoot a quick promo to be like, hey, everybody, you know, it's a big day in our industry here. And, you know, check out the X Awards. And I was having a tech issue, and just by the time after like an hour of if I had hair, I would have pulled it out. I just got my phone out and shot it on the phone. And I thought also it's cool because like, you know, like you're in the studio and, you know, you're getting some like kind of off camera content, you know, on your phone, like we all do sometimes, you know, and kind of go with that approach. But, you know, Marielou,
like marketing wise, just like one little note on that. So there's a brand that I worked with recently that now has to produce a lot of stuff via phone instead of bringing talent into a studio. They're just like, I don't know, shoot some footage and send it to me. It's doing better than their studio footage, because people like to see things that they look at and they're like, oh, I could make that.
Yep.
It speaks
Absolutely.
to people. So it's not even a bad thing if you just have to shoot on your phone. Like it's actually maybe better for you.
Sure. I could see that. I mean, especially with, you know, the quality that some of these phones have these days. It's incredible. There are people shooting films on it. But listen, Marielou, it's always such a pleasure talking with you. And sincerely, thank you for always just being so gracious and willing to help us out here. And for any of you out there watching, like, yes, I need a Marielou in my life, you can find her at her website, which is Marielou Mandl, MARIELOU, MANDL.com. That is Create, Release, Repeat on the Book of Faces Facebook. Thanks for coming by, Marielou. I really do appreciate you. And hopefully it won't be too long before our paths cross again.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Everybody, once again, this is EventSpeak with me, Big John. Find us out on the web at www.eventspeak.com. We have so much awesomeness coming your way, so be sure to tune in next week for our next episode, which is, you'll find out. All right, guys, as always, reminding you to take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.